From Ego to Heart, Part 1. 4 stages in the transformation of consciousness. In the previous chapters, we have described the historical background of the Lightworker's journey from ego-based to heart-based consciousness. This part will be dedicated entirely to the psychological characteristics of this transformation. We have divided up this process into 4 steps or stages, which we sum up again for the sake of clarity. 1. Being unsatisfied by what ego-based consciousness has to offer you, longing for something else, the beginning of the end. 2. Becoming aware of your ties to ego-based consciousness, recognizing and releasing the emotions and thoughts that go with it, the middle of the end. 3. Letting the old ego-based energies inside you die, throwing off the cocoon, becoming your new self, the end of the end. 4. The awakening of a heart-based consciousness within you, motivated by love and freedom, helping others make the transition. Stage 1. The ego does not fulfill anymore. The transition from ego-based consciousness to heart-based consciousness starts with the experience of an inner void. Things that used to draw your full attention or situations that you got completely caught up in now leave you empty or uninspired. Somehow things seem to have lost their usual meaning and purpose. Before this void is experienced, consciousness is in the grip of fear and the ensuing need to constantly reaffirm itself. It is continually looking for outside validation because it is unwilling to face the underlying fear of rejection and loneliness. This deep fear and the need for outside validation may long be hidden as the true motive for many of your actions. Your whole life may be built upon them without you being consciously aware of it. Perhaps you are aware of a vague restlessness or tension within you, but often a major event such as a breakup of a relationship, the passing of a loved one, or the loss of a job has come along to invite you to truly examine what this tension or unrest is about. When the ego is the center of your being, your consciousness and your emotional life are in a state of cramp. You cringe in fear, and from that position you are constantly on a defensive. When you're in the ego state, you always experience lack, a need for more. The foundation of your thoughts, feelings, and actions is a black hole, a void which can never be completely filled. It is a hole of fear, a hole placed and covered in shadows, since you turn your conscience away from it. In the shadows there is a void which you are vaguely aware of, but you don't want to go there. In this stage, your relationship with God, or all that is marked by feelings of separation. Deep within you, you feel alone and abandoned. You feel like you are broken, meaningless fragment with no purpose. And as you cover up your fear of this, you're only experiencing it indirectly as a shadow. People are terrified of facing the inner void with full awareness. They are terrified of meeting their inner darkness head-on and investigating it. However, if you don't face it, it is still there, and you will need to develop coping strategies to make life bearable. The ego's strategy is always to deal with the problem at the periphery, instead of at the center. The ego seeks to solve the problem by turning your conscience outward. It tries to alleviate the inner pain by feeding you with outside energies. The energies it is particularly fond of are acknowledgement, admiration, power, attention, etc. In this way, the ego seemingly creates an answer to the soul's deep longing for oneness, safety, and love. This longing in itself is entirely valid and genuine. It is God calling you. It is your own nature calling out to you. You are God. God is the energy of oneness, safety, and love. Everyone longs for the unconditional love and embrace of the energy you call God. In essence, this longing is the longing for being totally aware of, and therefore one with, your own divine self. Your own divinity is your entrance to unconditional love. You can only find it by going through the fear and darkness surrounding it, and this you do by turning inward instead of outward. You do it by using your consciousness as a light that chases the shadow away. Consciousness is light. Therefore, it does not need to fight darkness. Its mere presence dissolves it. By turning your consciousness inward, miracles will indeed befall you. The ego, however, proceeds in exactly the opposite way. It registers the need for love and safety, but it aims at answering this need without facing inner darkness and fear. To accomplish it, it applies a certain trick. It transforms the need for love into the need for approval and recognition from other people. It transforms the need for oneness and harmony into the need for excelling and being better than others. Once you think that to be loved is to be admired for your achievement, You don't need to go inside for love anymore. You simply have to work harder. In this way, the ego strives to keep the lid on the pan of fear. Your original longing for love and blissful unity has now become distorted into the desire for recognition. You are constantly looking for outside validation, which provides for some temporary reassurance. Your consciousness is essentially focused on the outer world. You rely on other people's judgments, and you are very edgy about what people think about you. This is highly important to you, since your self-esteem depends on it. In fact, your sense of self-worth sinks lower and lower, since you are giving your power away to outside forces who judge you for your outside performances and not for your true being. Meanwhile, the deep-seated sense of abandonment and loneliness is not alleviated. It actually gets worse, since you refuse to look at it. That which you don't want to look at becomes your shadow side. Fear, anger, and negativity can roam there and influence you, intensified by the refusal to go within. The ego can be very stubborn when it comes to suppressing certain doubts, hunches, and feelings. It will not release control easily. What you perceive as evil in your world is always a result of clinging to personal power. It is the refusal to give up control and accept inner fear and darkness. The first step to enlightenment is surrendering to what is. Enlightenment means you allow all aspects of your being into the light of your consciousness. Enlightenment does not mean you are fully conscious of everything within you, but that you are willing to face every aspect consciously. Enlightenment equals love. Love means that you accept yourself as you are. The inner darkness, that sense of abandonment in the depth of your soul that you all fear so much, is temporary. This ego stage is just one step in a large development and unfolding of consciousness. In this stage, the first leap is taken towards an individualized divine consciousness. The birth of individual consciousness, the birth of you as a separate soul, goes together with the experience of being left alone, of being separated from your mother or father. It is comparable to the trauma of birth in your physical world. In the womb, the baby experiences an oceanic sense of oneness with the mother. When it is born, it becomes a unity unto itself. Because of this birth trauma, speaking now of the birth of the soul takes with it a sense of being torn apart. It had to be part with everything it took for granted. The newborn soul longs for a return to the semi-conscious state of oneness from which it came, and which it considers to be its home. Because this is impossible, the soul experiences great fear and feeling of desolation and doubt. This inner pain and disorientation will gradually form the breeding ground for the ego's seizure of power. The soul has to deal with the fear and the pain, and the ego promises to provide a solution. The ego holds up the prospect of power and control to the soul consciousness. The soul, feeling powerless and lost, gives in and puts the ego in command. The ego is that part of the soul which is oriented towards the material external world. In essence, the ego is the soul's instrument for manifesting itself as a physical being within time and space. The ego provides consciousness with focus. It makes consciousness specific instead of oceanic, here and now instead of all over the place. The ego translates inner impulses into specific material form. It is that part of you which bridges the gap between the non-physical spiritual part of you and the physical part. For the soul as a non-physical spiritual being, it is quite unnatural to be fixated in time and space. The soul is essentially independent of any material form. When you have dreams of flying around, you are contacting this independent and free part of yourself. The ego, on the other hand, binds and fixates. It enables you to function in physical reality. As such, the ego plays a very valuable role that has nothing to do with good or bad. When it operates in a balanced situation, the ego is a neutral and indispensable tool for the soul who dwells on earth in a physical body. However, when the ego starts to rule soul consciousness, instead of functioning as its tool, the soul gets out of balance. When the ego dictates to the soul, that is the hallmark of ego-based consciousness, the ego will not simply translate inner impulses into material form, but it will control and selectively suppress those impulses. The ego then presents you with a distorted image of reality. The unbalanced ego is always in pursuit of power and control, and it will interpret all facts as positive or negative in this light. It is quite instructive to uncover your own power-based and control-based motives in your daily going about. Try to notice how often you want to bend things or people to your will, even if it is for a noble cause. How often do you get annoyed by things not going your way? It is important to realize that beneath the need for controlling is always a fear of losing control. So ask yourself, what is the risk of releasing control, of letting go of the need for predictability? What is my deepest fear? The price you are now paying for keeping things under control is that your attitude to life is tense and restrained. When you dare to live from inner inspiration and only do what brings you joy, this will create a natural and true order in your life. You will feel relaxed and happy without the need to mold the flow of life. This is living without fear, living with full trust in what life will bring to you. Can you do that? For a young soul, the pitfall of ego-based consciousness is nearly inevitable. The ego offers a way out of the problem of fear and abandonment. It shifts your attention from what there is on the inside to what you can get from the outside world. This is not a real solution to the problem, but it does seem to bring relief for a while. Exerting power and control over your surroundings may give you a temporary satisfaction or kick. There is a brief sense of being loved, admired, and respected. This soothes your pain for a while, but it is short-lived, and you have to exert yourself again to stand out, to be even better, nicer, more helpful. Please be aware that under the flag of the ego, you can be both sweet and nasty, both giving and taking, both dominant and subservient. Much that is given seemingly unselfishly is an unconscious call for attention, love, recognition from your receiver of the gift. When you are always caring for and giving to others, you are simply hiding from yourself. So to understand what ego domination means, you do not necessarily have to think of cruel tyrants such as Hitler or Hussein. Keep it simple. Watch yourself in your daily life. The presence of ego domination can be recognized by the need to control things. An example is that you want certain people to behave in particular ways. To make this happen, you display certain patterns of behavior. You are compliant and sweet, for example, and you try not to hurt someone's feeling ever. There is a need for control beyond this behavior. Because I want you to love me, I will not go against you. This line of thinking is based on fear. It is fear of standing on your own, fear of being rejected and abandoned. What appears to be sweet and nice is in fact a form of self-denial. This is the ego at work. As long as the ego governs your soul, you will need to feed yourself with the energy of others in order to feel good. You seem to have to deserve acceptance from other people, from some authority outside of you. However, the world around you is not fixed or stable. You can never rely on the permanent adherence of whatever it is you rely on, be it spouse, boss, or parent. That is why you have to work all the time, being always on the lookout for portions of approval coming your way. This explains the tense and nervous state of mind that anyone stuck in the ego stage is permanently in. The ego cannot provide you with true love and self-esteem. The solution it offers for a trauma of abandonment is in fact a bottomless pit. The true mission of the young soul consciousness is to become the parent it has lost. Please be aware that the structure of earth life, meaning the process of starting out as a helpless baby and growing up to be a self-contained adult, often invites you to precisely that. How often the key to real happiness in your life lies in that you become your own father and mother, and give to yourself the love and understanding you have missed and are missing from others. On the larger metaphysical level we are speaking of, this means come to the understanding that you are God, not one of his little lost sheep. This is the realization that will bring you home. This is the realization that will bring you to the heart of who you are, which is love and divine power. The end of the ego stage comes within sight when the soul realizes that it is repeating the same cycle of actions and thoughts over and over again. The ego loses its dominance when the soul grows tired and weary of struggling all the time for an ever-elusive treasure. The soul then starts to suspect that the promises of the game it is in are false, and that there is really nothing there for it to win. When the soul grows tired of trying and being on top of it all the time, it lets go of control a little. With less energy going out to controlling thoughts and behavior, an energetic space opens up which allows for the new and different experiences. At first, when you enter this stage, you may just feel very tired and empty inside. Things you deemed important before may appear entirely meaningless now. Also, fears may surface that have no clear or immediate cause. It may be vague fears of death or of losing your loved ones. Also, anger may come up with regard to situations in your job or your marriage. Everything that seemed self-evident is now in doubt. That which ego-based consciousness set out to prevent happens at last. Gradually, the lid is lifted from the pan, and all kinds of uncontrollable emotions and fears pop out and enter your consciousness, seeding doubt and confusion in your life. Until that moment, you were functioning largely on autopilot. Many thought and feeling patterns within you happened automatically. You let them pass by unquestioned. This gave unity and stability to your consciousness. However, when your consciousness grows and expands, your personality gets split in two. One part of you wants to hold on to the old ways. The other part of you questions these ways and confronts you with uncomfortable feelings such as anger, fear, and doubt. The expansion of consciousness that occurs at the end of the ego stage is therefore often experienced as a spoil sport, an unwelcome intruder which spoils the game. This new awareness unsettles everything that seemed obvious before, and it awakens emotions within you that you don't know how to deal with. When you start to doubt ego-based patterns of thinking and doing, a whole new side of you enters your consciousness. It is a part of you that loves truth instead of power. Living according to the dictates of the ego is very repressive. You are serving a little fearful dictator that aims at power and control, not just over your environment, but especially over you. Your spontaneous flow of feeling and intuition are restrained by this dictator. The ego does not like spontaneity so much. It holds you back from freely expressing your feeling, since feelings and emotions are uncontrollable and unpredictable, which is dangerous to the ego. The ego works with masks. If your ego dictates to you, be sweet and considerate to win people's sympathy, you will systematically suppress feelings of displeasure and anger within you. If you start to doubt the viability of this dictate, these suppressed emotions come up once again. Feelings are not eliminated by being suppressed. They live on and gain in intensity the longer you suppress them. Once the soul experiences the emptiness and the doubt that is so characteristic of the ending ego stage, it is possible to meet and face all the feelings and emotions that were hidden in the dark before. These pent-up emotions and feelings are the entrance gate to your greater self. By exploring what you truly feel instead of what you are supposed to feel, you restore your spontaneity and integrity, that part of you which is also called your inner child. Getting in touch with your true feelings and emotions sets you on a road to liberation. The transition to a heart-based consciousness has then begun.